Part of that strategy is to review the clients, and obviously we've reviewed RuneLite recently. During that we found some issues which we then raised with RuneLite.
RuneLite is the most popular custom client for Old School RuneScape. Although it's only been popular for a little under half a year, it has a much longer history than that. Due to the fact that it's open source and you can create your own plugins for it, it's had quite a few that gave players a little bit too much of an advantage. Players have even coded their own bots through RuneLite, although that's a subject for another video if anyone is interested in it. Anyway, today we're going to look at 5 plugins that either Jagex or the RuneLite developers banned or removed for being too overpowered. Number 5. Barbarian Assault Calling. So for anyone that's ever played Barbarian Assault, you know that calling is one of the most annoying parts. Whether your teammates are taking too long to call, or you didn't notice that the call has changed, it's generally just annoying. RuneLite attempted to solve this issue by making it so you could simply left-click the horn to call the correct thing. For players that don't know how Barbarian Assault works, there are 4 different roles. Each role more or less relies completely on each other. For example, the attacker role needs to know what attack style to attack with. Every 25 seconds or so, this style changes. So normally they have to wait for the collector to check which style it is, right-click the horn in their inventory, locate the correct style, and call the proper one. This can take some time, especially if the collector doesn't notice the 25 seconds is up and the call has changed. This plugin removes this completely by making it so you don't even have to check what style to call. You just left-click the horn and it automatically calls the proper style. As you can imagine, the developers saw this as extremely overpowered and gave a very clear advantage for players who didn't have it, and as a result, it led to its removal. Number 4. Dynamic Puro spawns. Puro is a minigame based around catching all the different implings you can find across RuneScape. It just simply puts all of them in one place for easy access. The way implings spawn in Puro works in 2 different ways. One of them is static, meaning the impling will always spawn in that same spot after it's caught. This is how a lot of people farm eclectic implings to get easy medium clues. Another type of spawn is dynamic spawns, meaning the spawn location and impling it spawns can change. This is how it works for the more rare implings like Lucky or Dragon. What this plugin would do is more or less guess where the impling is going to spawn. As you can see here, there's a gif of either a dragon or nature impling spawn moving across the screen. At the time, it wasn't considered very OP due to the fact that it was mostly RNG based and had a lot of guessing, but in the end it was still banned by RuneLite's developers. The reasoning behind this is because some still did see it as overpowered and unfair, especially because RuneLite would be the only client to have this feature. Number 3. Inferno and Theater of Blood plugins. This one is probably the most unique one on the list because Jagex banned one of them before they were even created. First, addressing Inferno plugins, they were banned by the RuneLite team themselves, most likely for game integrity reasons. At the same time, it really makes you wonder why RuneLite hasn't banned the Jad plugin, or that Jagex hasn't stepped in and banned it themselves. RuneLite has more or less already removed any memorization from Jad due to the fact that it tells you what to flick in terms of prayers. It's usually pretty accurate, sometimes a little bit slow, but more or less you don't really have to learn Jad at all. They probably don't want to do the same thing to what is considered the hardest piece of PvM content in the game. Now, as for Theater of Blood, another extremely difficult piece of PvM content, this is something Jagex has specifically banned from every third-party client. Also, once again, most likely for game integrity issues. Should a plugin actually release that makes the Inferno too easy, I don't doubt that Jagex would step in and do the same thing they've done with Theater of Blood. Number 2. AoE plugin. AoE, or Area of Effect attacks, are attacks that take up a few in-game tiles, and if you are standing on one of those tiles, you will get damaged by it. RuneLite used to have a plugin that would tell you exactly where any Area of Effect attack would land, and highlight the tiles that you needed to stay off of. A few examples of this would be places like Vorkath with the Fireball attack, and the Falling Rock scene at the Gargoyle boss. Although this plugin no longer exists for PvM, there is a similar one for the Blast Mine that shows you how far to stand so you don't get damaged by explosions. This should give you a little bit of an idea of how the AoE plugin works, seeing as how I can't actually find any footage of it. Number 1. Zhora Helper. This is a plugin that more or less made it so you had absolutely no reason to ever learn Zhora, as it told you exactly what to pray and where to stand for each phase, as well as telling you what to do when the next phase started. I feel like had this plugin existed after RuneLite went mainstream, it could have wreaked havoc on the economy in terms of Zhora related drops. Anyway, the footage you're seeing on screen right now is actually from another custom client called Exilent. It's a PvP client that typically has less than 1,000 online players using it. Exilent is known for including a lot of controversial features, only one of which being a Zhora Helper, which is very similar to the one RuneLite used to have. Anyway, as you can guess, RuneLite Zhora Helper was banned as it grew in popularity. The only reason Exilent still has it is possibly because it's flown under Jagex's radar and they simply don't even know it exists. Although I would not be too surprised if this custom client got banned in the future.